Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Mike and Natalie. I'm watching these in preparation for the new 90 Day Fiancé season that's coming out in December of 2020. Let's get to the show.
Look, I mean, okay, you seem a little frustrated.
I don't understand why you
I mean, is there anything that you have been not telling me? Did you maybe lie about something on your background check or something? Did you ever apply for another visa and you just didn't want to tell me? Have you ever applied for another K-1 visa with anyone?
All right, so there's nothing wrong with him saying, I've been trying to get this visa thing to go through, and there's all these things that are happening, and the embassy won't say why the visa keeps getting rejected. I wonder if there's something on her end that is preventing the government from allowing her to come to the United States, or if there's some kind of issue there. I'm frustrated. What's going on? And the feelings are normal. It's also normal to think, I wonder if Natalie has something else in her past that she hasn't been telling me about because she's ashamed of it, or I don't know. And that's what's getting her visa flagged such that she can't get her K-1 visa. There's nothing wrong with wondering, how do you ask, though, in a way that doesn't hurt your partner and doesn't make them afraid? To just ask them, hey, have you been lying to me? Even if they were withholding something from you, that can be a hurtful thing to say. It's hurtful to assume or to even think that your partner is lying to you actively. And there are other ways to say it, something like this. And I always say, if being healthy is being corny, then be corny, right? So here's my corny way of saying it, which is, hey, honey, I have been really trying to get you to come to the United States because I love you. And he actually said some of this stuff. And I went to the embassy, and they told me that it's been hung up, and I don't know what's going on. There's a whole list of reasons as to why this would get hung up that have nothing to do with you or me. But there is just one question I have, which is maybe there's something in your past that you haven't told me about because you didn't think it was important, or I don't know, maybe you're ashamed of it or something. And that detail is putting a snag on the system here. And I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just frustrated. I'm just throwing this out there. Is there anything you want to tell me, I don't know, that you just haven't mentioned yet that might be related to the visa process? And if this hurts your feelings, it's not meant that way. And there could be things wrong with my history that are causing this happen. I don't know. I'm just looking for something. Maybe if we knew what to address, then we could address it. That kind of thing. Now, when I word it that way, I would think, I don't know, that her chance of being hurt would be reduced. Now, she might still get hurt. And I think he did a pretty good job. He was definitely going in that direction, but he's concluding with a pretty pointed question, basically intimating he's assuming that she's lying about something. And even lying about her not having applied for another visa before for another American man. So and she's already seemingly upset about it. So let's see how they do this here.
I need to know. Have you ever been to America?
I never applied for K-1 visa with anyone. It just makes me upset when you say like this to me. It just makes me, oh my God, how can you not trust me?
All right, so her reaction seems to be a valid one. She's hurt, she's exhibiting that hurt. And she's saying, how could you accuse me of this? Now, there's a way to do it, I think, that would not trigger him, right? To tone it down a little bit, something like, hey, I get that you're upset about the visa, and I guess I get that you wonder if I haven't told you about everything, but I have to say it hurts my feelings that you would think that I would lie to you. And, it hurts this attitude that you're giving to me right now. It hurts my feelings. And so I hope that you can trust me. I guess we haven't known each other that long, so it makes some sense you don't trust me, but I don't know. I guess you're just going to have to trust me that those things. And to be honest, for you to think that about me really worries me, that you would think I would do something like that. Why would you think I would do something like, But she's definitely going in the right direction. There's nothing wrong with her exhibiting some pushback and some hurt, and she's putting it into words. what we've seen from her before is that there are two things that happen. One is that she seems to give let's say that there's a threshold for her, that below a certain threshold, she's able to use her words, totally take responsibility, work with him, work within a differentiated space, meaning that she's able to see the forest through the trees, and that she's like, okay, I'm having some feelings right here, but it's not the end of the world, but I do have valid feelings, and I have an impulse to really blow up right here, but that probably isn't going to be helpful, and I trust him, but I'm hurt by him. Like, the ability to differentiate between all those different elements is what Bowen called differentiation in a nutshell. And so she has below a certain threshold this differentiated space. Beyond a certain threshold, that's when she resorts to a number of things. One is she does the death stare, which I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm calling it the death stare, but I'm not exactly sure what she's trying to communicate, but what I'm guessing the way it comes across is just like severe anger and hostility and just hatred. It just looks like whoever the person she's looking at, she just thinks of them as like the enemy complete. She did that to her friend, and then she's done that to him. So she does that. She also will sometimes be very sad to the point of crying and literally lying in her bed in a fetal position and not easily consolable. She'll also accuse and get hostile with him. So, the hypothesis is that when she's very hurt and very afraid that's when she crosses that threshold. Or the running hypothesis I have about her is that there's something around abandonment or criticism or having difference, and she even alluded to this while she was in a fetal position talking with him. She's like, how are our children going to survive if you and I don't agree? That is a very slight indication, potentially, of when she was a child, her parents didn't agree, and there were a lot of bad things associated with that. There was maybe violence, who knows, but maybe neglectful parenting or even harmful parenting. And she associates everything that she saw in her parents with all the terrible things she went through as a child, which, is a valid way of looking at life. But the fact that they disagree on religion doesn't necessarily mean that their children are going to be raised in a terrible family. That isn't an association that I would say is always true. But that's what we tend to do when we're children. We watch our family, and we have a hard time distinguishing between factors that contributed to our abuse or mistreatment and factors that are just sort of thrown in to the mix. So it's possible that she did that. I have very little indication of that other than from what she said, but also the way she reacts and what particularly triggers her. And so she seems to be doing really well right now, and let's see how the two of them manage this.
How can you do this?
Because I need to bring it up.
Why?
It's a logical explanation.
Why? Why you make guilt to me?
No, I need to ask you.
I'm telling you, I'm clean.
All right, so he seems to be kind of convinced, and I wish we knew why he was so convinced. But if there's no reason for him to be convinced, it's a bit of a weird thing that he is really laying into her about this. Now, maybe he has reasons to do this, but once she confirms, no, I haven't been to the United States, I haven't done a K-1 visa, and I'm clean, everything's fine. Unless he has other reasons to believe otherwise, which he should probably state at this point, then he should probably say, okay, well, I believe you, and I don't have any reason not to believe you. I guess I'm just really frustrated about the visa. All right, let's continue watching.
On everything?
On everything. It just offends me so much how you act like this towards me. We're having a great time, and all of a sudden you bring it on the table, just like that.
Now, if I were there with her, I would say, okay, totally get it. When he does that and he brings it on the table just like that, how does that make you feel? What are the feelings you're having? Because unless you put that out there, the temptation for the people in Mike's position is to be like, well, of course I just put it out there because it's a valid question. So when you debate the nature at which you brought something up, or when you debate issues that aren't really critical to the emotionality of the matter, then you end up arguing about this. And couples do this all the time. If you actually analyze the verbatim argument that people are having, it's almost never about what's really happening. And a lot of times the couple doesn't even know what's really happening until we really look into it. Right now, it's totally reasonable that she's insulted and hurt and worried that he would think she would lie to him, that he would think that she has some sort of sordid past. And that hurts her and that concerns her, and she's hurt. It's not that he just plopped it on the table, as she's saying, metaphorically. It's that he believes that she's a liar, and that he believes that she's been lying to him, and that he believes that she's some sort of criminal or something. That hurts. And when you state it like that, like what you said right there, when you just flopped it on the table, it hurts my feelings because it makes me think that you don't think I'm a good person, and I want you to believe I'm a good person. And so that hurts my feelings. And you exhibit that hurt. You don't get angry. You don't do the death stare. You say, that hurts. You might even cry a little bit. That really can communicate to the other person that you're hurt. That gives him the signal, oh, it's not the nature that I brought this up. It's the fact that it hurt her feelings, which makes sense to me. But even if it doesn't make sense to me, I don't want to hurt her feelings. And then and then it gives him the opportunity to have empathy for that. There's understanding. You can still go back to the topic at hand and be like, well, honey, I still kind of wonder, but at least you can help someone to de-escalate by having their emotions out there and for someone to take care of it. Now, what she can do is she could see the forest through the trees and see like, okay, honey, you seem real sure that I've lied to you, which I say hurt my feelings, but what's going on for you right now, Mike? And for Mike to look at himself and say like, oh, okay, what's going on for me? Well, I guess I've been lied to before in the past. I guess I'm just generally worried about our future together, not only with the visa, but we've had some conflicts lately, and I guess I'm just really scared and I don't know what to do, and I'm freaking out. And then she could take care of him, and he could exhibit those emotions, and she could say, I get it, I'm right there with you. I'm scared too. It's normal to be scared. And is there anything I can do? So if they talked on that level, knew on that level, talked on that level, took care of each other on that level, we wouldn't see this, which I'm worried about. Given the direction this is going, as a clinician, as a professional, you get a sense of how couples and where they are in terms of the steps of conflict, if you will, the escalation. And they're definitely right now at like a 4 out of 10. So, and they started out as like a 2 or 3, and we've definitely started to ramp up. Mainly because he is digging in and going like, well, of course I'm accusing you of lying. And she is starting to get angry about that. And so let's watch how this goes.
What is my fault?
I need to make sure that you're telling me the truth and everything.
I'm telling you the truth.
Did you ever apply for another visa with some other guy?
Yikes. I mean, I would suspect that Mike has some legitimate reason as to why he's digging in on this and persisting. But what is she? I have to think that she's telling the truth. Who knows? But even if she's lying about it, what's the point? Unless you have some reason. This is the 3rd time he's asked this question. She's answered it twice and said, no, I haven't had another visa application. I haven't gone to the States. So I wonder what's going through his mind.
Were you dating some other American guy? Have you ever been to America? I mean, any of this stuff?
So they both, I guess, have a tendency to do this when push comes to shove and the escalation goes up. They will get angry and walk off. So there's nothing wrong with needing to take a break, but the way to do it is say, okay, I'm going to explode or this conversation is really bumming me out. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to walk around the block, and let's continue this conversation after I calm down. Okay? All right, I'm leaving. Something like that is definitely fine. To just storm off, there's a couple consequences to that. One is that the person you're, running away from can be very hurt by it. Just be like, oh, now you're abandoning me. The second thing is it kind of traumatizes the person you're leaving in that, and when he did that to her, I was really worried about her when he went for a walk and was gone for hours drinking a bunch of beer. And what it can do to the person when you leave is it really challenges your trust of the person. There's nothing wrong with wanting a break. In fact, sometimes that is absolutely advisable. And I'll work with couples to add a protocol that involves that, particularly if one person really gets activated and it's one of the only ways that they can calm down. There's no sense in staying in a conflict when you are activated and you're in a fight or flight, your brain isn't working right. You're going to do bad things. We've all done that before in conflicts with relationships, and I'm guessing all of us wished we would have taken a break instead of continued with that conversation. Anyway, the other thing that I'll say about walking away is it sets up this pattern of hostile action through abandonment. I'm angry at you. I'm hurt by you. I'm worried. I'm angry, and I'm going to be hostile. And the way I'm going to be hostile is I'm going to run away from you. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to slam the door. Screw you. It's not a very effective way of communicating our feelings. If you can, again, you say, I need a break, and you do it in a calm way. You don't have to say that you're right or I'm wrong or whatever. You say, I need a break, and give me a half an hour. I'm going to walk around the block, or I'm going to go outside. I'm going to get a deep breath, and we'll revisit this in a second. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're just going to storm off, you're basically saying if it's okay for the two of us when we're upset at the other person to be hostily separate as a message of like, screw you, I'm out of here, right? Instead of saying something, even if you stayed in the moment, she could say something like, okay, let me get this straight. You're completely convinced that I'm lying to you, which I have to say is very hurtful to me. Is that what I'm hearing? You're totally convinced that I'm lying to you because, wow, that really hurts. I mean, I'm very distressed right now. I'm freaking out that you think that put it into words, give someone a chance, I suppose. Or even just say, okay, you know what? I don't want to talk about it anymore. We're done. I have an impulse to run away. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be mean. We're done talking about this. So, end of discussion. 5 minutes of silence. Or there's a lot of options available, including taking a break, but you have to do so in a way that isn't a hostile act of abandonment, if that makes any sense. Anyway, let's continue watching. Again, I really wish we knew why he was pressing this matter. This doesn't seem indicative of his behavior in the past, as far as we've seen on the TV show thus far. Why is he so convinced? There's also that thread of jealousy that we've seen in other people where the American is like, am I just one of many Americans that you've dated and tried to rope into marriage so you can get a green card and come to the United States? And I get the feeling, I get the worry, but it is usually a manifestation of underlying worries about the relationship. You're worried about, you're not sure if the other person really loves you. Because let's just extrapolate. Let's say that yes, she has dated 3 other American guys and even had K-1 visa applications with them. Well, what would that mean? Well, to some people that would mean, oh, she doesn't really love him. But both of those could be true. She could have dated several other Americans and at the same time absolutely love him and want to be with him. All of us understand that past a certain age, we probably have relationships in our past in which we genuinely, from the bottom of our heart, loved someone else. So the fact that she was involved in other relationships, even American men, doesn't negate her love for him. So really the issue is, if you break it down for people, and I've worked with a lot of jealousy in this way, is okay, I guess what I'm really worried about is that she doesn't really love me. Okay, say that. Don't get hung up on who she was with in the past or if the guys were American or not. Just recognize that you don't feel very loved or you're unsure about her love, and that's okay. That happens throughout marriage and throughout relationships. No matter how good a relationship is, you will have moments where you're saying, I don't know if my spouse loves me anymore. And we have this rom-com notion that, you work through those phases in the beginning of a relationship and then you ride off into the sunset happily ever after, and you never have to do anything to work on the relationship. It is universal, I want to be clear, that even in the beginning of the relationship, but even after 50 years of happy marriage, that you will frequently have notions where you're just like, I don't know if I feel loved right now. Or I'm pretty sure my spouse loves me, but I'd like some reassurance on that. So how do you bid for that? As we call it bids in the business. How do you ask? How do you indicate to the other person that you need some reassurance? Sometimes it's more subtle, like, hey, let's hug, or hey, let's have a date night. Because if they say yes, then that indicates that they actually want to be with you. Or you can literally just ask, hey, I'm feeling like you don't love me today. Or, well, that'd be mean to say, hey, I need some reassurance that you love me. Can you do that for me right now? So I wonder if he right now is feeling unloved or something, or he's worried about the relationship. Maybe their past conflicts are taking a toll on his trust that she loves him. And he's focusing on this past relationship thing because that's easier to do. It's less vulnerable than to speak from the heart and be vulnerable. And he's exhibited that before too. He has some barriers there to, just total speculation, to his true vulnerable self. But let's continue watching.
I didn't want to make her upset, or press her too hard, but I just wanted to know if there was anything holding up our visa. I just felt like it needed to be said.
So it's a little troubling that in an interview later that's his narrative, that, it just needed to be said. Presumably if he had any reasons for why he was pressing her on the matter, he would have revealed it at that point. But that's disappointing because unless, from my watching, and he didn't have any good reason, he hasn't stated, for grilling her, asking her literally three times. She answers the question, and you're like, well, and then by re-asking, you're essentially saying, I don't believe you. I don't believe you in the past, and I don't believe your answer right now, and I'm going to interrogate you until I break you down. So, the fact that he's standing by that action is worrisome.
But, it wasn't my intentions to put blame on her, and I didn't want to, I didn't like making her feel that way.
All right, so he did say that. He's like, I didn't like making her feel that way. All right, it's a good start. And she's coming back seemingly relatively soon, which is good, I hope. I guess it's good if she has de-escalated in terms of her distress. And let's see how they reconcile here. I have high hopes given I've seen two things from this couple. One, disaster, and two, totally healthy communication about feelings and about responsibility. So let's watch.
Look, I'm sorry for pressuring you like this. I didn't mean to frustrate you, okay? This stuff's on my mind, and I have to ask.
All right, it started out okay. Look, I'm sorry for frustrating you. Wasn't my intention to do that. But I had to ask 3 times. You had to not believe her answer 3 times. So that would be the part I would hope he could see is, yeah, I'm sorry for not believing you. I mean, I wish that they could really just boil it down to that. It's like he asked a question accusing her of lying. She answered the question. He re-asked the question saying, you're lying. I'm asking you again. I hope that he can see that's what would hurt her. It's not that he had to ask. It's not that it's an interesting, worthy question. It's the accusation of she is a liar and that she is not a good person and she's a criminal or something. So hopefully, if that is how she's feeling, she can communicate that instead of obscuring that with layers of anger and hostility.
Sometimes I have very good connection with Mike, but it feels like Mike tells me that I'm lying, yes. And it was like, oh my God.
I mean, that's all that's really bugging me. I wasn't trying to ruin her night.
To go home.
Let's go home.
Okay, it's interesting. When I was giving the options of her reactivity, I didn't include one that I've seen before as well, which is what she's doing now, which is just not saying anything, which I'm wondering what's going through her mind. I'm guessing she's thinking, I'm really hurt, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. Maybe I'm overwhelmed. I can't get my thoughts straight. I'm just curious. I'm thinking that it's a good mode if it's the best mode that they can get into, because maybe it'll give them some time to think and to re-talk about the situation without triggering each other. All right. Well, if you haven't commented below before and you want to do it for the very first time, I invite you because I want to know what you have to say. And let's all get our voice out there. Let's participate in the conversation and maybe reply to other people's comments, and get to know each other. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.